Dan's a fantastic man. He really is.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
What's going on, everybody? This is Dan French. This is the French Workbench podcast here on a Tuesday. I want to thank everybody out there for tuning in with me, and we really appreciate the support. If you guys have not liked the like button, hit that like button. Also, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe if you like the content that's coming out of this video. Also, we have a full house today. We have a packed house today. We got a lot of information, so we're going to get right into it. First off, you guys, thank you so much for supporting the channel, and please show the channel some love. And today we're going to talk about quite a few things here in Las Vegas. One of the things we're going to talk about is what's going on with the eviction moratorium. We're going to talk about that. Las Vegas, the update that's going on with the Las Vegas housing market. We're going to talk with Matt about that. We're also going to talk with Mike Keeler over here about what's going on in the financial planning or financial news, if you want to talk about that. Also, we have a really good guest here. He's a special guest. He's somebody that's from the Las Vegas Water District. Actually, you're from the Las Vegas Water Authority. Is that right?
Yep. Southern Nevada Water
Authority.
Southern
Nevada Water Authority. And this guy's name is Mr. Bronson Mack. Bronson, thanks for coming in, man. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, Dan. I appreciate that. You can cut the Mister out of that name. You can call
Right?
me Dude if you'd like. That's just
Dude,
fine by me.
what's going on, man?
Yeah, you bet.
No,
now
but-
we're talking my language
No,
here.
he
Yeah.
was saying Mr. like in Water Mister.
Yes, yes. We got Mr. Matt Shields back over here. He's a realtor. He's going to have his input on what's going on here today. And we got also, I'm going to introduce Mr. Mike Keeler. Mike, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Oh, living the American dream. I had 2 weeks off, enjoying it up in northern Minnesota, playing on the lakes. A lot of water up there.
Yeah.
A little bit less than normal, but hey, it's pretty cool up there.
So before we get into the other topics that I'm going to discuss, I want to talk with Mr. Bronson here. There's been a lot of people with, not just my conversations, but just in general, they're having high concern about this water shortage and this water concern here in Las Vegas. And I think a lot of people are really taking concern to it. Now, the government stepped in and they did the whole phase 1 thing, and we're starting to see them really come into play with trying to support this. But you guys at the Housing Water Authority, you guys have already started that process of maybe finding out where the problem's at and fixing the problem, and even is there even a problem? So we're going to kind of delve into that and see what's going on with that. So let's talk with you first, Mike. I'm sorry, Mike Bronson. Excuse me.
Yeah, you bet.
How long you been
Can
in?
you turn the music off in the background?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a bit distracting.
Bronson, how long you been with the Water Authority?
Well, I've been with the Water Authority for about 20 years now. Actually started with the Water Authority when I was an intern in the communications department as a student at UNLV.
Sure.
Was able to stick around for a little while on kind of a contract basis, and ultimately was hired on full time. So 20 years I've been working with water, with conservation, water quality,
Absolutely.
talking to the community, and really answering a lot of questions and clearing up a lot of misconceptions about Southern Nevada's water supply.
Yeah, I think there's a big, Lake Mead. We know that everybody's thinking about what's happening with Lake Mead and where we're going to go with that.
We've all seen the pictures.
Yeah.
Well, I've been down there. Like, I go down to the lake, and I moved here in 2003, and people said, "Oh, the lake's gone down." And in 2003, I could see that it had gone down.
Yeah.
But then it's continuously gone down. It seems since 2003.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's a
the-
very different lake now.
That's the
Yeah.
bathtub ring that you're
Yeah,
referencing
yeah.
there. So Lake Mead, since 2003. I mean,
Yeah.
Matt, your timing on this is great. Look,
Okay.
this drought that we've been experiencing now
start?
for 20 years started in 2002. That was really when
Okay.
it was declared.
Okay.
It started in 2000, 2001. The flows of the Colorado River
Yeah.
that fill Lake Mead were below
The
average,
ice
but it
pack was down.
that's right. The snowpack was down.
Snowpack was down.
But it was 2002 when the Colorado River states really understood that we were in a drought situation. That was year number 3. And a drought is one of those things that you don't realize that you're in a drought until you're already about waist deep.
Sure.
And it was 2002 when we ended up being waist deep. And it's 2003. Your arrival here in Las Vegas, Matt, brings on this conservation programming that we have today that has really helped to reduce our water demand. So the drought begins
So we should just get rid of
2002.
Matt?
No, I
Send
always
him
bring
home?
the heat.
It'd be a lot cooler if it was that easy, but it's just not.
No, I'm not leaving.
Okay.
In fact, it's because of these conservation efforts that our community has been implementing over the past 20 years that has allowed Matt to move to Las Vegas, that allows Mike to move to Las
Yeah.
Vegas, that has allowed us to be the economy and the community that we are today.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. So, like, first of all, thank you for being here. I see you're in charge. Your title's public information, but I hope we find some of the truth today and not just the public information, because anything we talk about, Bronson,
Was
is
there a
classified. It's just going to stay in this room.
Is there a conspiracy?
Nobody is listening, right?
No one's
Yeah.
listening.
No
so,
one's listening.
So I got
Glad to know I'm among friends.
okay, exactly. We're friends now, so let's be candid, right?
Yeah.
So, a question I have for you is you're waist deep in a drought, and we were like 3 years into the drought in 2003 for whatever. What are the parameters, or what's the causation, in your opinion, or what your company believes to be, is why we're having this drought? And like, I'd like to understand that, like, because is it a cyclical thing, or do you, in your opinion, think there's been a shift in the water ecology, and now this is just the way it's going to be for the future? Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I think that's a solid question. I think that's a question that not only the water industry, but also science is really getting
Trying to
caught up
grapple
on
up. We're trying
and
to
starting
figure
to
out.
better understand.
Yeah.
Here's the situation. This drought started in the early 2000s. We have seen the flows of the Colorado River significantly reduced for the past 20 plus years.
From reduced precipitation in the winter of snowpack.
You nailed it. That's
Okay.
right. Perfect. So less snowpack in the Colorado Rockies means
Yeah.
less runoff into the Colorado River. That's less water that ends up making its way into Lake Powell first, and then ultimately down into Lake Mead, where we access that water supply. Now, overall, as we look at that past 20 years, the flows of the Colorado River have been about 20 to 25% below average. So again,
Okay.
that's less water coming in. What is the cause of that? That is ultimately, as you indicated, reduced snowpack in the Rocky Mountains. What is the cause of that reduced snowpack? As we are looking at it, as the climatologists are looking at it, it is the manifestation of climate change. It is moving toward a warmer and drier, more arid future for us here in the West. And we have been told
Which
wet
is
areas
permanent.
wet areas are going to get wetter, dry areas are likely to get drier as a
Right.
result of climate change.
Yeah.
Is that permanent?
Maybe.
Don't know for sure, right? But we need to be planning on a warmer and drier climate going forward. So our organization, from our stance, that's what we are planning for. We are planning for literally less water in the Colorado River system going forward. Now, we will have years where we will have above average snowpack, where we will have great runoff, above average runoff. We might even have flooding events that are going to continue to occur on the Colorado River. We haven't seen those over the past 20 years, but everything that we see in the climate modeling indicates that we are going to have those wet years as well. And those wet years are going to be a benefit to the total Colorado River system.
Are we running out of water though? That's one of the questions, because I think a lot of people think that, well, we're dry, we haven't had rain, even though we had rain a few times. But a lot of people have questions like, are we running out of water with the amount of people, the population? Is there enough water for the population, including the growth of population that's going on here?
There's so many people in the desert. Why are we living in the desert? That's a huge issue.
So what you really have
For a
is you've
tax
got
break.
Yeah,
there is no state income tax here, so that
at
is
the
kind of a
moment.
benefit,
Yeah,
and one of the
yeah.
reasons why people
Yeah.
enjoy living in southern Nevada. But look, you got to keep in mind that Lake Powell and Lake Mead are doing what they were intended to do. They are storing water in the wet years so that it's available in the dry years. Over the
Right.
And that's
past
what's
20
happening
years, that's what's
Yeah.
happening now. Over the past 20 years, we've had 5 wet years. That's 15 dry years that
Wow.
we have had during that same time period. So ultimately, it is going to be the responsibility of the 7 states that share the Colorado River. And each state gets their own allocation of Colorado River water.
Nevada gets
the
25%,
smallest.
right?
No, man, we get actually the equivalent of less than 2%
Of the lake?
of the Colorado River's
Oh, really?
flows.
You
Yeah,
get less
Wow.
than 2%. What
of
other?
the Colorado
Las
River's
Vegas
flows.
or Nevada?
Nevada.
Oh, wow.
In fact,
But
all
what's
it-
our maximum that we can use?
So the maximum that we can take out of the Colorado River from Lake Mead is 300,000 acre feet. That's how much we can consume each year, 300,000 acre feet. Last year, we consumed about 255,000 acre feet. So that's about 45,000 acre feet of unused water that we had on the river last year.
Yeah.
Now, we've banked that water for our future supply.
Can you roll it over?
You can't roll it over necessarily, but you can put it into a bank account, and that's what we have done.
So is it like, it's not like T-Mobile where you have rollover minutes?
Can't roll over your minutes.
So
But
how do you bank all that water?
you can-
Where's the water bank?
Great question. So we've got water banks in the aquifer that's located beneath our feet, where we actually pump water into the aquifer where we store
Okay.
it. We have a bank in Lake Mead. So there is water that is in Lake Mead that is stored for our future use.
But when you say stored, is it contiguous to the rest of the lake, or is it
It
separate?
is. No,
Okay.
it's within
It's
the
in
lake.
the lake,
It's commingled
but,
with
like,
all of that
that's
water
our
that's there.
water.
That's right. From an accounting standpoint,
Yeah.
that's right. That is water that has our name on it. We also have banks in Arizona and in California. Now, it seems kind of strange that we would have water banked in Arizona and California.
Sure.
But ultimately, when we need
Don't
that
want all
water,
your eggs in one basket.
that's right. And when we need that water, we're going to call upon it. Arizona or California will take that water out of their bank. They'll use it locally to meet their water demands, and we'll take that like amount of water out of the Colorado River.
Straight from the
Straight
source.
from Lake Mead. That's
Okay.
right. And then we'll be able to use that here locally. We have the
Yeah.
equivalent of 8 years of water that is stored for our future use.
If we had no more precipitation or snowpack.
If we had no more precipitation or snowpack, I mean, you're talking about a very extreme event
I know,
at that
yeah,
point,
I'm
right?
talking about
so
worst
you're
possible
still going to
event.
have inflows that are going to come in from tributaries that come
Yeah.
into the Colorado River and into Lake Mead.
Right, so we're not all going to have to drink beer. if it gets
Well, we're
really
gonna need
short,
water, right? If we
not
have-
that I drink anymore.
But if we need beer, we need water, right? So
Well, we
Yeah,
just
that's
threw
a
it out of
good
state.
point.
that works.
that's right.
So,
Good California beer.
so are you anything to do with the big project they did where they put the new
Straws.
the straw into the lake to draw water lower? Is that part of your company?
Yeah, the Southern Nevada Water Authority constructed intake number 3, a 3-mile long tunnel.
I saw a documentary on that on YouTube. It was incredible.
I'm so glad you saw that.
Yeah, I saw the whole documentary.
That is available for anybody right now if you were
You should
interested
put that in
after
the
this
link.
podcast,
Put it in
of
the link.
course.
Podcast. let's
It's a
be
really
clear.
good documentary. It was a stunning piece of like how they navigated underground to go to the exact point,
Yeah.
break through, did it all underwater.
So real quick on that. They took an intake structure. They built an intake structure, basically a giant concrete box with a pipe sticking out of the top
Yeah.
of it. They took that out to the location in
Put it
Lake
down.
Mead. They put it into the bottom of Lake Mead after they had
They blew it up.
excavated out
Yeah.
a whole section for this box to sit in.
Yeah.
It's called the riser.
Yeah.
That box was then concreted
In
underwater, concreted in
special
place.
concrete mix to dry underwater.
Then a
I
tunnel
know all
boring
this shit.
machine.
I
This
know
is
this
Matt.
shit.
Matt's totally
Matt,
all over it, man.
Matt was
My
following
man.
your research, man. He's
I
read up all
don't-
about you.
I'm not your average realtor. I am no joke.
This is a man who knows his YouTube.
Yeah.
He knows his stuff, man.
So we took then a tunnel boring machine that was 24 feet in diameter,
Yeah.
and it did a 3-mile long drive underneath Lake Mead. When it was making that tunneling drive underneath Lake Mead, it was experiencing the highest pressures
And it
that were
flooded.
ever experienced under a tunneling operation. They did have a flooding occurrence where they had to evacuate out. They had to make a slight adjustment to the tunnel alignment, and they were able to continue to move on. That tunnel boring machine, after its 3-mile long drive, hit its target. Now, mind you, they did all of the survey for this. They don't have GPS 600 feet underground,
No.
right, or underneath Lake Mead. This is all traditional survey methods.
Yeah.
The contractor hit that box, hit that
Spot
riser
on.
sitting there, spot on. Missed it by millimeters,
Yeah.
right and left and up and down, but millimeters.
Yeah, fine.
But hit
blows
it right
my
where they
mind.
wanted it to be.
So the other thing
And
I,
that's where we draw all of our water today through intake number 3.
the other thing that caught my eye, there's a lot of cool things about the documentary, and incidentally, you should put a link to that in the so
absolutely.
people can see this because
Yeah.
it's pretty cool
Yeah.
if you're interested in this. But I thought what was stunning was the flotilla of concrete trucks that you barged out into the lake with all of the drums spinning so that the concrete wouldn't dry before you put it down.
Yeah.
And then it got windy, and then you're like, it was like quite a really awesome operation.
It had a little drama to the documentary, didn't it?
Yeah. Have you seen the did you have this show in America called Fraggle Rock?
Oh, sure.
Fraggle Rock. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know the little guys that
Yeah.
are going around doing the construction? It was like that on steroids. What were they called? The doozers?
Yeah, the doozers.
Yeah. It was pretty cool.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
it was cool.
Good reference.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that people are worried about, right? So the responsibility of water and how to use it responsibly. And I think a lot of people don't know. I mean, when they're moving here, they're thinking about, I want to move to Las Vegas, but then they see all this stuff all over the news, like we're running out of water in Lake Mead.
This
ahead.
is caveating to what you're saying.
Go ahead.
But like being European, I would go on vacation to island countries like Mallorca.
Sure.
And where they have like a small water table, they don't have access to the Colorado River, or they don't have the Hoover Dam or Lake Powell.
Yeah.
And when you go to those hotels as a tourist, you'll see signs everywhere saying, don't flush the toilet unless you have to, or reuse your towels, or we're only going to give you one set of towels. But the thing is, my thought on that is in Las Vegas, that will never fly with the American lifestyle, because you're not, I think you've got like the consumer consumption.
Sure.
And when I say consumer, I mean residential urban consumption. But like for corporate, like tourist activities, like it would be like a contradiction for people to go to like the Mandalay Bay or go to the Wynn in absolute luxury and then just say you only can use one set of towels, or you can't only half flush the toilet.
Yeah, you don't want to be. A lot of Americans today, they have it at their fingertips where they can consume, and there's nothing that's policing them to say you overuse the water. Now, like Henderson's coming out saying that they're going to start maybe putting a little bit higher margin of percentage of what they're going to be if you overuse the water.
Yeah.
But there's nobody that is like saying, hey, you guys, you can only water your lawn or whatever it is on these days to conserve the water.
Yeah, but everyone's on a meter, so you pay for what you use. But like, what's the difference in consumption between like, if you know this, Bronson, between like commercial consumption of say casinos and tourism on the Strip, and I know that some of them have got their own water supplies, versus like the residential consumption.
Great. Let's talk some numbers here.
Okay, cool.
So when we look at water use throughout Southern Nevada, we really are using water in one of two ways. We are either using water indoors or we're using water outdoors.
So that's how it's split in your like.
That's at least one way to split it. And then I'll get to the sectors in just a second. Let's just talk about indoor versus outdoor.
Okay.
So the indoor water in Southern Nevada, whether you want to or not, you recycle water in this community. We employ community-wide water reuse. Everything that goes down the drain, whether you're taking a shower, brushing your teeth, washing your hands, flushing a toilet, everything goes down into the wastewater collection system. Flush that toilet, it all goes down into the wastewater collection system. All of that wastewater, goes to any number of wastewater treatment plants. City of Henderson, North Las Vegas, Clark County Water Reclamation District, City of Las Vegas.
So it's recycled, is that right?
They take that wastewater, they treat it to a clean water standard. It's near drinking water standard, but not quite.
Not quite.
But it's a clean water standard, and they do such a good job treating that wastewater that it can safely be released back to the environment, to Lake Mead, through the Las Vegas Wash. And the Las Vegas Wash is a natural wetland. So those wetlands help to absorb some of those nutrients before it gets out to Lake Mead. For every gallon, Matt, that we put back in Lake Mead through that reuse of water, we can take another gallon out of Lake Mead and bring it into the valley as treated drinking water after it goes through the potable drinking water treatment process. That allows us to stretch our water supply. So that's one way.
Would you say that's a closed loop system?
That's a closed loop system.
Okay.
That's right.
See, I know my shit.
Come on, man.
Were you gonna I just know this stuff.
Were you trying? What do you do? Is this your hobby, Matt?
No, I got all A's for everything. And I ended up being a realtor because I'm a ninja at psychological incision, but like I could have done whatever.
Yeah.
And I do find this interesting.
So Matt, that closed loop system that we have, if all of our water use was just indoors, we would virtually have a perpetual motion machine to be able to continue to provide water to this community.
Yeah.
The fact is though that 60% of our water supply gets used outdoors, and that's the water we only use once. That's right.
That's what I'm saying.
And so that outdoor water use that we consume, that's the water we consume from the Colorado River. It's really done in one of two ways. Either irrigating our landscapes or evaporative cooling. Okay.
Wow.
And those are the two primary ways that we consume water. So this is why we focus our conservation efforts on our outdoor water use.
Because
we make conservation easy.
That's where water's leaving the system.
That's it. That's where water's leaving the system and we're not getting it back. So this is why we pay $3 a square foot to replace your grass with water efficient drip irrigated landscaping. Think about this for a minute. A square foot of grass, it uses 73 gallons of water for 1 square foot for an entire year. 73 gallons of water is equal to a 10-foot column of water on
Do you know
grass.
what?
What's 10 feet tall? Give me something that's that's 10 feet tall. You got a frame? Got a reference there?
Your typical build, basketball.
Basketball
There you
hoop.
go.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Basketball hoop is 10 feet tall. Okay, so
right.
that's how much water. That's a swimming pool with a diving board on it. That's how much water
that's
we put on
crazy.
grass. Our drip irrigated
I
landscape.
feel like such an arsehole now because
Yeah.
I've got so much grass in my neighborhood.
Come on, man. We got to talk about getting
Try
rid
and
of that
talk
stuff.
to my neighbors. They're not having any of it.
The water smart landscaping that uses less than 3 feet of water. So it's a significant
What, are
difference.
you talking about rock?
I'm talking about plants
Yeah,
that flower,
shrubs.
that flower, that
landscaping,
benefit the
shrubs.
bees, that benefit the hummingbirds. I'm talking about trees.
But grass,
Trees
let's
that
talk
provide
about,
shade,
let's talk-
shade your home, shade your property. You
Yeah.
want shade. Now, people will say, like, but grass is so cooling. And I'm like,
No, it's
yeah,
not.
grass is cooling after you run your irrigation
Water.
system and you've just sprayed water up in the air. It's like your own little misting
we shouldn't
system
have
there.
grass here. I mean, it's like, I know we've got a lot of dispensaries,
Yeah.
but I'm talking like it's a thing.
You're right.
No.
What
but
grass
I'm
are you
saying,
talking about?
Not that grass. But what I'm talking about is that it's a throwback from like the lawn era, like the what do you call it? The white picket fence.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's American Dream stuff, Matt. You hit it right on the head.
Right, and so
Yeah.
which is no longer like appropriate, and tastes have changed, and we're getting rid of a lot of grass, but there is still a lot of grass out there.
So the Nevada legislature just passed AB 356 in this past session. And what AB 356 says is that as of December 31st of 2026, 5 years, you will no longer be permitted to use Colorado River water to irrigate what we call non-functional grass. That's grass that
that's a ho-
nobody walks on.
When's that deadline?
We're giving property owners 5 years, primarily
What's the
commercial
date?
property
What's the
owners.
date?
December 31st of 2026.
Oh gosh, I didn't know about that.
So
That's
you've got
serious.
5 years if you are if you're a single family residential home, we're going to continue to incentivize you.
Can you
We
be
still want you to get rid of your grass. We're really targeting HOAs,
New stuff.
common areas, medians,
Yeah.
that grass that surrounds the parking lot at
Green
your grocery
Valley,
store or
Green-
your dentist office.
Green Valley's days are numbered.
There's a lot of non-functional grass in
Right?
the valley. You know what, Matt? Non-functional grass
What about
right
park?
now.
What about park for the little Timmy?
Your park is going to be okay as long as it's functional. There's probably areas of
functional.
parks,
Like designated recreational grass
correct?
could be construed as being functional.
That's right.
But
Your
having
soccer
a big
field, your football field,
Yeah.
all of that is.
So Bronson,
functional.
we got a question here from running at altitude. When's the best time to water your lawn, morning or night?
So right now in summertime, the best time to water is either in the evenings after sundown. Give your landscape a good drink of water. First thing in the morning, before or right about sunrise. Give your landscape that drink of water just to get them ready for the day. If you have drip irrigation, we recommend right now in summertime that you're watering about 4 days a week. You don't need to water every single day on your drip irrigation. If you're watering your grass right now, you can water 6 days a week. Not on Sundays. There's no watering permitted on Sundays
What,
for
because of-
spray irrigation, conservation.
it's not a religious thing.
Not a religious thing, just conservation.
It's like thou shalt not water your grass on Sunday.
Give your grass a day of rest.
Is that a Mormon thing?
That's right. So no watering on Sundays and no watering between 11 and 7. Now here's the kicker, is that every single season, fall, winter, spring, summer, we need to change our irrigation habits. You need to change your
and
sprinkler
you need to do
clock.
it quickly.
And you need to do it when we ask you to do it because this is our water savings time. We're about to hit September 1st. On September 1st, we need everybody to go to 3 days a week. You have 3 assigned watering days. You can find your assigned watering days on SNWA.com. You're either Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. If you're in North Las Vegas, it's a little bit different. It's an odd and even practice.
Sure.
But make sure that you change that sprinkler clock, especially going into fall. This is the biggest time for us to save water. It's the easiest thing you can do. It's no skin off your nose. And if you don't know how to change your sprinkler clock, YouTube it, because there will be a YouTube that'll show you, a video that'll show you how to do it. Or better yet, upgrade to a water smart irrigation clock. I have a smart irrigation clock. I got a coupon from SNWA for half off, so I saved $50 on a $100 clock. I now set my sprinkler clock from my phone. We're all used to the apps on our phone. If you get a smart sprinkler clock, you can easily set it on your phone from the comfort of your home. And that's what we need everyone to do. Follow the seasonal watering restrictions.
So I've got one of those, and I've noticed I've had a few skip days because of rains and things like that.
Perfect.
Isn't that kind of cool?
That is fantastic. In fact, we just had a pretty heavy monsoon 2 weekends ago. We put out the call to this community to turn off your irrigation clock. On Monday, our operators identified that we saved 65 million gallons of water simply by having people turn off their irrigation clocks Saturday, Sunday. Skipping Monday, it was a huge water savings for us. 65 million gallons of water just by skipping a day.
I'm assuming you've got a giant water meter somewhere so you can actually see that go down.
That's correct. I mean, in theory, we do. And it's, it's through the system that we have in order to deliver and manage our total water supply throughout the valley.
Does the Southern Nevada Water Authority have an opinion about swimming pools and the possibility that there may be a moratorium on future pool building? Do you think that's on the horizon?
I don't know about what the future might hold as
I
far
know,
as swimming pools go.
But evapotranspiration on swimming pools, is that significant?
Dude, you're awesome. So evapotranspiration, that's on plants, but swimming pools is just straight evaporation.
Just call it evaporation. Sorry.
You're awesome, man. So evaporation of swimming pools, it's kind of a big deal to a degree, but if we were to look at, if you had a swimming pool that's, let's just say 1,000 square feet surface area, and then you have a grass area that's 1,000 square feet, your grass is going to consume more water throughout the year than your swimming pool is.
Of course.
So your swimming pool loses water to evaporation. Make sure that you get in and use that swimming pool. If you're using that swimming pool, it's providing a benefit to you. That's fantastic. We want you to use the swimming pool that you have. If you need to drain your swimming pool, it's very important that you don't drain it out to the street, but rather to the sewer clean out port. There's going to be a port
then it gets
at the house.
recycled.
Bingo.
I didn't know that. That's a good point.
We're going to get that back into the sanitary sewer system, wastewater system. It's going to get reclaimed, treated, sent back out to Lake Mead. We get that water back.
Do you think that it might be a good idea, because skateboarding has for the first time been in the Olympics, are you going to provide a tax credit to drain out pools and have them as skateboard ramps?
Let me just say this. If there are any drained swimming pools out there, call me up because I will be there with my board to drop.
Okay,
I won't drop in. That's a little too heavy. But I will ride it. You bet.
Okay.
Well, I want to say something about the water shortage situation. So you look at Lake Mead, and everybody wants to know what is the percentage that we actually use as Las Vegans from Lake Mead. Like, I know there's other states, but as we pull from Lake Mead, what other states are taking from Lake Mead? And then how is that going to affect us? Because I think a lot of people are a little bit on the sidelines as far as understanding how, if we're going to have water long term here, because they're just scared.
So there are 3 states that take water from Lake Mead, as well as the country of Mexico. Southern Nevada gets 300,000 acre feet of water from Lake Mead. Arizona gets about 2.5 million acre feet of water from Lake Mead. Wow. California gets 4.4 million acre feet from Lake Mead.
Wow.
Now these numbers
and Mexico
are all
gets 1.5 million.
These are all because of when Hoover Dam was originally constructed, that there just weren't that many people in Vegas. Is that the deal?
The Colorado River Compact started. The river was divided up under that compact in 1922. So about 100 years ago, that was divided up. It wasn't known at the time, but we now know that the data that was used at the time when the river was divided up was a hydrology that was very, very wet. We have gone back. There have been a lot of scientists that have gone back and done the paleohydrology of the Colorado River. That's through reconstructing tree rings and getting data on what the hydrology was like during that time. And what we have come to know is that when the Colorado River was divided up, it was divided up during one of the wettest periods that has ever occurred on the river
Which could have
system.
been like a false paradigm to cut the cake.
So now you have 7 states and 2 countries, United States and Mexico, that are all sharing this river. You have California that is using their full allocation of about 4.4 million acre feet. You have Southern Nevada that hasn't used its full allocation since 2002, right before Matt moved here. We were using our full allocation that year. Wow. But we've really been able to drive down our water use here locally. Arizona is driving down their water use. California is not necessarily driving down their use, but California's population has grown and their water use has remained relatively flat. So their conservation is helping to maintain
Except for
where
farmers. Farmers are having a hard time in California.
they are. Now, about 80% of the Colorado River is used for agriculture,
Yeah.
and that's up and down the river. That's for the entire river system. So agriculture is a big water user. About 20% is used for the urban environment. Now, the federal government is going to declare a water shortage on the Colorado River this August.
Okay.
That is going to
When's
be
that
implemented
happening?
next year.
So that's inside information.
Not
Is
necessarily.
that public information or inside
It's
information?
pretty much been out there, Matt, but I appreciate that.
I was trying to make it more exciting.
So
Is
what
this
does that-
just
what does
phase
that
one
mean
they're
for
talking
us?
about?
Secret.
Is this
This
it's
is
the
the
phase
tier
one?
one.
The
Phase
tier
one.
one.
Tier
Yeah.
one. So what that means for us here in Southern Nevada is our 300,000 acre feet is going to get reduced down, and it gets reduced down to about 279. We have to take a 21,000 acre foot reduction. Now, Arizona is taking a reduction of more than 200,000 acre feet.
So it's all proportionate.
It
for
is
each
pretty
state.
well proportionate.
Okay.
Okay.
Although we're not going to go to war with California on Nevada. We're not going to say you're cut off because we got the dam. Sling your hook. You guys need to.
Would we
figure
ever
it
get
out.
to a point where we would have? That's a good question, though. That's a good question.
And it's one that people
Yeah.
ask because they're like, Lake Mead's in our backyard. Why don't we
Yeah,
just cut
possession
California
is
off?
9/10 of the law.
Yeah.
And the reality is that California, Arizona, and Nevada, we all have the same
Yeah.
legal entitlement to
Yeah.
Colorado River water. Nevada doesn't own that river, doesn't own Lake Mead. We are very fortunate to be on the banks of Lake Mead. That means that's a reduced cost for us in order to move that water
Yeah.
from Lake Mead into the valley, and we get to recycle that water back. So we get huge benefit being so close to Lake Mead, but we don't have the authority to cut off
I
any
have
other
a, I have a
state.
question.
What
Sorry,
about
after you.
other states like California? They don't recycle their water like we do. We get a credit for every toilet flush that goes into Lake Mead. Is there anything, or is California
My
doing
boys get a
anything about
credit if they flush the toilet. They don't want to leave phantom turds
Is
lying around.
that an allowance thing over there?
No, it's you're not going to get beaten.
Yeah.
So, Mike,
Sorry.
you ask a really good question about recycled water, and there is water recycling that does occur in California. But what Southern California is looking at right now within the Los Angeles area is a very large water recycling program. The vast majority of wastewater in Southern California, especially in the LA area, that water gets treated to a standard that allows them to discharge it safely into the ocean. That water is lost once it gets discharged into the ocean, unless, of course, we're going to desalinate it. So what the Los Angeles area is doing in concert with Metropolitan Water District of Southern California is they are going to repurpose that water. They're going to increase their wastewater treatment capacity. They're going to move their treated wastewater, instead of discharging it to the ocean, they're going to bring it back across the LA area and inject it into their aquifer. That will then allow them to recover that water in the future. They are creating a new source of supply that will be able to be used for potable purposes in Los Angeles. We, as a partner with California, are going to be making an investment in that program. And for Southern Nevada's investment, we're going to get some of the water that project produces. But rather than piping and pumping that water from Los Angeles to Las Vegas,
Which makes no sense.
makes no sense, we're going to exchange that water for a like amount of California's allocation from Lake Mead. We've made the investment in intake number 3, putting our intake on the bottom of the lake. That allows us now to be able to access the full elevation of Lake Mead. That gives us the ability now to enter into these kinds of trades and exchanges with Colorado River partners. That helps us to extend our supply, increase our water supply, and it's also going to help those other municipalities as well.
So I got a question about casino water supply. Like I've stayed at different casinos, and I stayed at the Wynn, and it's a thought that came in my mind, because when you flush the toilet at the Wynn, it's like like it's super powerful, right? Honestly, go to the Wynn, flush a toilet, and you'll be like, Steve Wynn knows how to flush the shit away, you know? So anyway, but my question is this: the casinos, do they get supplied from the aquifer? And then that you bank water in the aquifer, right?
Yeah.
So do the casinos pay for that water, or do they have a well and they can use as much water as they like?
So we started using Colorado River water in Southern Nevada in 1971. Prior to 1971, sole source of water here was the groundwater system.
Yeah.
So all of the hotel properties that were around,
Which is why Vegas was
prior
founded.
to 71, right?
Yeah.
Las Vegas means the meadow.
Yeah,
And the
exactly.
Meadows is the area of the Springs Preserve.
And the
where
white man took that from the
Off of
Indian.
that.
water
Valley
bubbled up, and that's right, created the Las Vegas Creek.
Yeah.
So many of the hotels do have water rights, do have groundwater wells that they use. The Bellagio uses their well for their fountain. The
Yeah.
Wynn uses their well for their golf course. But all of those hotels are also using our Colorado River supplies in order to meet
That they
their
pay
needs
for.
of their customer. Certainly, they have
Yeah.
a water meter just like any other customer does. Now, again, what's important to remember about the Las Vegas Strip,
Do they have a water meter for their well?
of course,
Okay, so
so what's important to remember about the Las Vegas Strip is that the vast majority of their water use
Is
going to
recycled.
be indoors,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So all of the guest rooms, in fact, our general manager, John Ensminger, says all the time, we could turn on every faucet and every shower in every hotel room on the Las Vegas Strip, and it wouldn't increase the amount of water we deplete from the Colorado River each year because
loops
all
around.
of that water gets looped around, treated, and returned back to Lake Mead where
Wow.
we get credit. Their biggest water consumer for a hotel is going to be evaporative cooling. Now, Matt, you
like
hit
swamp cooler.
Air
well,
conditioning.
Air conditioning.
Air conditioning,
Yeah,
yeah.
air conditioning.
Now, you had asked me about, hey, who uses the most water? Residents use 60% of our total
Wow.
water
For
supply.
their landscaping.
Well, residents just as a whole, talking
Oh.
about multifamily residential
Yeah.
and talking about single family residential as a whole, all of the water that passes through the system, 60% of that goes to residents.
What percentage of that gets lost out the system? Did you say 60%?
Yeah, that comes down to that indoor-outdoor split. So our indoor water use is 40% of our total
Yeah.
supply. So we're recycling 40% of everything we bring into the valley. Again, that 60% number hangs out there, but that 60% of our
Well,
water supply is consumed
so-
outdoor
Yeah.
irrigation, evaporative
So
cooling.
it's not like the strip, like water consumption on the strip, because it's in the closed loop, it's unlikely that they'll ever say to you, just use one set of towels or flush the toilet half the time.
Well, a lot of the hotels actually do have those programs in
Yeah.
place. I mean, that reduces costs for them on the housekeeping side of things. In addition to that, a lot of their guests are looking to stay at venues that are environmentally conscious, that have programs like that. So, and we actually have a linen exchange program, and we have a lot of the hotels that participate in that, and that allows them to promote, some of their conservation efforts that they're doing at their property to their guests. Now, real quick, as far as what the hotels use, hotels on the Las Vegas Strip and throughout the valley, hotels, resorts, casinos, lump them all together, they use about 8% of our
Okay.
total water supply. Now,
It's not that much.
it's not that much, and that's total water use. Now, their consumption of that is really just in their evaporative cooler. So they actually consume less than 8% of our total water supply. We talked a little bit about that non-functional grass, that grass that we're going to be
Yeah.
targeting under AB 356. That grass alone uses and actually consumes 10% of our water
I'm
supply.
sure.
So grass in this valley that nobody is using consumes more water than the entire Las Vegas Strip.
So from a real estate development perspective, if you look at, say, an older community that was built in the 1980s, like Green Valley, Henderson, where I live, is just around
Right.
the corner. Green Valley, very green. You see established landscaping, a lot of grass. Some of it's being moved out now. But then if you compare, say, Green Valley to Inspirada, which is higher density, all desert landscaping.
Less green.
Less footprint.
Yeah.
Less
Right.
less exterior water consumption.
Sure.
Like with Summerlin, these new communities are developing with this in mind. But the older communities are going to have a reckoning.
And we actually
Right?
changed, there were some development code changes that happened in 2003 when we implemented our conservation measures that prohibited the installation of grass in
Grass.
front yards.
Well,
Yeah.
I got a question on new
And
homes.
commercial properties.
You got a lot of the smart homes, right? They're being built. Why wouldn't they set up some type of with the new, master plan communities and places like that where they have that recycle situation with just like the hotels, where you can, instead of losing all that water with the new production and new homes that they're building, why wouldn't you just put some type of recycle system to put back into Lake Mead the way they're doing it?
Well, just to clarify, when we talk about those hotels and reclaiming all of that water, the same thing is going on in the residential sector.
So they're getting up
So
to that as well.
Right here
Right.
in this facility where we are, all of the water that goes down the drain here is going to get treated and returned back to Lake Mead. Indoor water use throughout the valley, unless you're connected to a septic system, all gets recycled. So new development, all of that water gets recycled as well. So there isn't really a need for new development to do like gray water systems or things like that, because we're already doing it on a safely doing it on a community-wide basis.
That just sounds like it'd be really expensive to do it on an individual basis. I mean, that's what I want, another system to maintain.
Right?
Yeah.
We're so fortunate here of the plumbing that, those who came before us and developed Southern Nevada had the foresight to do. We're shaped like a bowl, right? This valley's shaped like a bowl. All of our wastewater treatment plants are down at the bottom of the bowl. So everything pretty much gravity feeds. All of our
Funnels all
wastewater
the way
gravity
down.
feeds all the way down at the bottom of the bowl. That's also where the Las Vegas Wash is, the final link in our watershed out to Lake Mead. I mean, we're really fortunate with our location to Lake Mead, the plumbing infrastructure that we have here, the investment that's been made, and that's what allows us to be one of the most sustainable communities in the southwestern United States.
So I've sold quite a lot of properties in Lake Las Vegas and actually know about the history of how Lake Las Vegas was made and its water supply. And originally, before I knew all that, I always was dubious about swimming in Lake Las Vegas because I thought it comes out the Las Vegas Wash and, it's like recycled water and it might be a bit turdy and it's not like the sea. But in actual fact, the water, would you say, is the water quality higher in Lake Las Vegas or in Lake Mead, would you say?
Well, it's the same water.
It's the same water, isn't it?
It's the same
So
water.
it's not drinking water,
Right.
but it's been very treated.
It's considered raw water.
Raw water.
So, but you're right. The Las Vegas Wash goes underneath.
There's a pipe underneath.
Goes
Lake
underneath
Las
Lake
Vegas.
Las
Yeah.
Vegas.
Yeah.
What
It's
about
pretty cool.
desal? You talked about desal. Everybody's like, well, look how much water we have, right, in the ocean. Couldn't we use some of the ocean water to start supporting that? I mean, do we have the technology to do that?
The technology's there. We see
Expensive.
desal plants that are built in Southern California. Matt's totally right. It is a big expense.
Like you could do that in Singapore, like Kuala Lumpur, where there's like the money and the shortage of space, and the invisible hand of economics can make it happen. But at the moment, it just doesn't pencil out, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's some challenges, right? We don't have any coastline here in Southern Nevada to be able to build our own desal plant that we can operate. So we would need to have a partner. Those partners end up being California or possibly Mexico. When you look at California, California's got plenty of desal sites sited up and down their coast. The California Coastal Commission obviously plays a very heavy hand in that as well as far as the permitting goes. So there's some significant challenges there to get the permitting and
Not my
operating
backyard.
and the cost associated with it. We have had quite a few different conversations over the years with the country of Mexico about some potential to do some desal there. From the Southern Nevada Water Authority's perspective, desalination is a potential viable option for us in the future. It is part of our long-term water resource plan, but I think really what you're going to see are more projects and programs like recycled water, like we're doing in Southern California through that partnership. It's more cost-effective, a little bit easier to be able to get all of that on and permitted. So you're going to see those kinds of projects, I think, take precedent over desal right now.
I got a question. So with residential and economic growth in the valley, and with that, like over the next 5 to 10 years, there's still space in the valley for growth, but eventually at some point in the future, the valley will be filled up at some point in the future, and there will be infill, but you won't see those tracts of desert within the fishbowl of Las Vegas.
Right.
Is it possible that, like, say, like in Henderson, where they're going to build Inspirada back to the mountain, so is it possible that we could have real estate development and water supply on outside of the valley, like just outside the valley, like say, like a little bit on the left as you go towards California, like on the left behind the mountains.
You ever been to
behind
Los
Henderson.
Angeles? See how they sprawl?
I know, but like
they go up to
they
Palmdale
do that. They do
and-
that. But like, is that possible in Nevada, or is there a hard water constriction where, like, there was a development called Coyote Springs up in the north, and that developer really screwed up.
Yeah.
Because they didn't pencil out for all the water supply, and they built the golf course, and they said, oh, we're going to have the new master plan community, and it's going to be beautiful because you can see the stars because there's no development up here. Bad news. They didn't have any water.
Sure.
And they lost, they couldn't do it. Do you know anything about that?
So As far as talking about development,
Yeah.
continuing in this
Future
valley,
development.
maybe even getting outside of the valley, ultimately the Water Authority doesn't do the land use planning for Southern Nevada. It's our responsibility to ensure that we've got the water resources
supply.
in order to meet this community's water needs. We have done some things as far as passing some policies that would require that if there is development that occurs outside the valley, and if Colorado River water is used for that development outside
They
of
have
the
to
Las
consult
Vegas
with you.
Valley, they will either have to reuse 100% of their wastewater, or they have to pipe that wastewater back into Southern Nevada
So you can
that we
reuse it.
can reuse it and
So it
reclaim
stays in the
again.
loop.
So it stays in the loop.
There you go.
That's
Good to
absolutely
know.
right.
Yeah.
So there are some checks and things like that that are in place. But ultimately, like I said, it's our responsibility to make sure that we've got the water to be able to meet this community's needs, however this community decides to grow up.
I got one more question. That Pahrump, right? Don't they have? Is it that there's a specific aquifer there that's different from this one? Is it the Oliga? What is it? Oliga? What's the name of the aquifer?
You know what? That's in Nye County. I don't know the specific name
so
of their
there's-
aquifer. It's
I'm
not
gonna
the
find-
Ogallala aquifer.
That's what I meant to say.
That's in the Midwest. That
Okay,
one's
my
more
bad.
Oklahoma.
But there's an
area.
aquifer in Pahrump, right?
There is, yeah.
That supplies the water in Pahrump.
100% of Pahrum's water is, I understand it comes from groundwater, but I'm not
that's
an expert on
That's
Pahrump
not
system.
in the Southern Nevada Water Authority's realm,
Correct.
right? Because we're in the valley.
Right.
Okay.
So how much water does the strip? Because the strip takes on a lot of the water, but you're saying it's recycled. Are they really taking on a lot of the water, or they're really not taking
Well, it's
on
like
a lot?
8%.
Yeah,
It's like 8%,
It's like
right?
8% of the water that comes through the entire system
Right.
ends up going through the Las
which
Vegas
is
Strip.
less than I thought actually.
But the thing to also keep in mind is that the Las Vegas Strip employs, I believe it's, obviously a very high
300,000
percentage,
people? I have
very
no
high
idea.
percentage of working Nevadans here. It's the economic engine
Yeah.
of our state. So, we make a very modest investment in water resources into what is our biggest economic return in the tourism, service industry, and gaming industry down on the Strip.
What tips could you give somebody out there that's saying, like maybe somebody's starting to be cautious, maybe people are starting to be aware because Lake Mead's drying up, there's no water, we're maybe in a drought. What are some of the tips to conserve the water that we have that you can give out to people that are living at home?
Well, it's all outdoor.
So right now there's three things, and you're right. It's all focusing outdoors. There's three things that you can do today in order to really make an impact. Number one, make sure you are always following the seasonal watering restrictions. I can't talk about that enough. It's the easiest thing that we can do to change when we irrigate our landscape. September 1st, we go to 3 days a week. Change your sprinkler clock in early September. I know you're going to tell me it's still 105 degrees in early September. My grass isn't going to make it. My tree isn't going to make it.
It'll make it.
Yes, it will. It'll make it. We've been doing this now for 20 years. Your grass and your landscape's going to be fine. Change your sprinkler clock. Follow the watering restrictions. Number two, get rid of that useless grass. If you've got grass at your property that you are only walking on when you're pushing a lawnmower, and I'd actually laugh at that because you're not pushing the lawnmower.
No,
Your landscaper's
Carlos
pushing the
is.
lawnmower. This is Southern Nevada. We don't take care of our own landscapes. We hire people to
Do you know
that.
what? I always disregard. Not I sound bad now, but now I've met you, Bronson. I have a little bit of a conscience now about my grass and my watering because you got the water police. When they come around
bet.
and fine you.
That's number three.
How much is the fine if you're caught watering on the wrong day or you're breaking the law?
So after you get rid of that useless grass, which we'll give you $3 a square foot for. So you're not out there by yourself coming out of pocket 100%. We're going to give you some investment dollars that you can make to get rid of that grass. $3 a square foot. Act now in order to get that $3. No guarantee it's going to be around forever. Number three, report water waste. That's the water that is flowing off of a property, or if you're watering on the wrong day, you could get hit with a water waste violation.
How much is the
That's
fine?
where the water waste cops come into play.
$200?
It depends on where you are. If you're in the city of Henderson, water waste fee starts at $40. But that fee is going to double with each successive citation that you get, violation. That's right. In the Las Vegas Valley Water District, it starts at $80. So, and again, that one doubles as well. 80,
You know
160,
what?
320.
You've
Here we
inspired
go.
me to walk around my neighborhood and dob on my neighbors. I'm just going to tell on them.
So we make that really easy too. And here's the other thing you need to think about, right? Like you're going to
What's
tell
your
on your
number?
neighbors.
I got your number.
you're gonna tell on your neighbors, right?
I would never do that.
And really what it is more so than anything is if you're not willing to let that neighbor know, like if that puts you in an awkward position of like, I'm not knocking on this guy's door.
Yeah.
That's fine. We'll do the knocking for you. You just need to let us know. City of Henderson, North Las Vegas, and the Las Vegas Valley Water District, we all have apps that are available. You can download them from the App Store.
Is there a reward for telling on someone?
There isn't. You just get to do it anonymously if you want.
I tell you what, if you do a $50 reward, the water savings will be through the roof because everyone's going to want to get paid.
We're going to have to put you in like a protection witness plan. He's going to be, right.
So you download that app. It's very easy to report water waste. At least for the Las Vegas Valley Water District, you can even submit a photo.
Yeah.
There's a map identifying where you are, so you can just go, yep, that's the property.
I
a couple of
actually did
clicks,
that.
and you're good to go.
I did that a couple weeks ago. The fire hydrant outside my house was leaking, and I couldn't quite figure out how to do it. So I looked on the internet and like, oh, well, that looks pretty simple. I went and took a picture of it, and
Yeah.
it's not
Perfect.
leaking anymore. Somebody fixed it.
Perfect. And that's what we need. I mean, look, the community here, this 2.3 million people that call Southern Nevada home, we all are invested in this community. That's why we're here. A lot of us have come here from somewhere else, but we've all made the investment here. We need to keep investing in water conservation. Top 3 things: follow the watering restrictions, replace that grass, report water waste. That's a big help.
Would you say, Bronson, is the forecast like optimistic as to we can manage this, or is it like touch and go with the drought and like consumption? Like we always have to do our best and do what we can based on what
Great
we
question.
got. But like, what would you say, like, is it like optimistic that we can get through it? Is there a cause for concern? Like what's your sentiment on that kind of future sentiment?
So one of the things that we do from a water planning perspective is we plan 50 years out into the future.
Okay.
So available on our website, SNWA.com, if anybody is curious, is the water resource plan. And in that plan, and that's a plan we take to our board every single year. We update
50-year
that plan every single year. So we have a 50-year outlook. We take population projections from UNLV. They provide them to us from the Center for Business and Economic Research. We take that annual population projection every single year. We convert that into a water demand for the next half century. And then through our planning process, we pair the necessary resources that are going to be required to meet that water demand 50 years out. Now, we do scenario-based planning too. So we take into account the potential for changes in those demands, conservation, climate change, a warmer and drier future. We take those different scenarios into account and do planning based on all of those. So that gives us a very good understanding of what the potential impacts might be going forward and what we need to do to ensure that we've got those water supplies for the community. Now, that 50-year water resource plan does include future water resources that this community may need at some point, at the end of this next half century, but we're already working towards that. That's part of the partnership that we have here with Los Angeles and working with them on the recycled water project. That's the potential for desalination or other types of investments and partnerships that we can make.
Do you think it's fair to say that it's very unlikely that there's going to be any more lake communities in Nevada? Like we've got the lakes and we got Lake
Desert
Las Vegas,
Shores,
Desert Shore,
Lake
but
Las
that's pretty
Vegas.
much
Those are the
it.
3.
That's it. You
Yeah.
reckon? I reckon that's it.
Well, I can tell you that they are no longer allowed to be constructed in this
There's no
community.
planning.
There's
yeah.
no man-made
so that's
lakes
it for
that
the
are
lake
permitted
communities.
anymore.
Fake lakes. That's it.
Well, let's talk about the desal, right? Desalination. What is it?
Desalination.
Yeah,
Nation.
that's a coastal thing.
Well, here's the thing. Wouldn't you think that doing that though would just take away all these problems? Because I know you said it's a high cost, but look, if
and you
these
have to get it here.
yeah, but if these things are already set up and we need the technology and we need the water, and if obviously these other places are growing, we got Arizona, we got California, all using the same water source. Wouldn't that just kind of open things up a little bit? Wouldn't they put more emphasis on that?
So what you see with desal right now is you're looking at, and we use a unit of measure in water. It's called an acre foot. And it goes back to the agricultural, histories, and it's
do you know
enough
what the
water.
cost of an acre foot is for desal?
I'm getting there, man.
Okay.
Can you let me finish?
Sorry, I'm too excited.
So that acre foot, that's a unit of measure for water. It's enough water to cover an acre of land,
Is
1
it
foot deep.
An acre foot, it's a 1 foot cube.
Yep. 1 foot by 1
not a
acre.
cube.
One
but-
foot by 1 foot.
By 1 acre by 1 acre.
Oh, 1 acre. I'm sorry, I was thinking feet.
Yeah.
But it's
So
a 1
football
acre,
field, 1 foot
1
deep.
foot up. Yeah.
Football field 1 foot deep. On desal, that's going to run you anywhere from about $1,300 to $1,600 an acre foot. On the Colorado River right now, that's going to run you close to $350.
Yeah,
an
but
acre
I
foot.
think
Yeah,
I look at the
much
long.
cheaper.
I look at the long term of it though. Like, look,
Yeah.
yes, it's going to cost money today, but what if it's set up? We got more water supply from the ocean.
The problem with desal is it's very energy intensive. So, it just requires just a humongous amount of energy. And that's where all the cost is.
Yeah.
There's there, and then there's also within the disposal of the brine, the waste, if you will, on that product. So if you're looking at $1,600 an acre foot, it's the water rate payer that ends up having to cover that cost. You're looking at like the most expensive water that would be available in a portfolio. So you have municipal water agencies working to extend their supplies, working to ensure reliable supplies, and trying to do that in a way that is cost effective for customers, for the communities in which they serve. So I think that, there is certainly the potential that we will get there or may need to get there, but maybe not.
But then if that happened, that would be California doing desal plants, and then they would do it, and we would share the cost and take some of the water out.
That's kind of the theory.
Then we wouldn't have to ship the
You'd
water
exchange
here.
it.
Yeah, there'd be
Yeah,
some
you
type
would
of
share
exchange.
the cost
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
right? So, but the thing I was going to say is that we're creating money in certain ways to just create things from government. Obviously there's taxes involved. Wouldn't this be like a future tax? Couldn't we just say, you know what, we're going to bite the bullet, and they're just going to, make this a transition of where we can get that money over there to make this happen?
What politician is willing to do that?
They're going to have to stick their neck out.
Yeah.
But the other thing, a question I get all the time, and I'm glad we had this conversation, Bronson, because now I can speak with like a bit more knowledge. But people ask like, "Well, are we going to run out of water?" And I'm like,
that's a big topic.
I mean, like my answer is no. I mean, they plan. Now I could say they plan 50 years ahead. I spoke to this guy called Bronson. He said everything's fine. So
Here's
we're not
his
going to run out
number
of
if
water.
he's wrong.
So,
No.
So one other thing just to think about on the desal front is, does it make sense to invest, billions of dollars in infrastructure in order to generate desal when we can invest millions or hundreds of millions here locally just in conservation?
Yeah, changing
just
lifestyle.
using what we already have in a more efficient manner. I mean, water is a limited resource as we know it today.
What if population keeps growing though? And this is my thought. And let's say we're all sharing this water. Like, I don't know what percentage. I know that we have a certain amount of what the Colorado River, of what we can take. What if everybody starts to, like you guys are saying, what if they start fighting about who's going to take what? There's more population in the world. So what do we do at that point?
Well, again, we're talking a lot of hypotheticals here. The Colorado River Compact is very clear as far as which states get how much water and kind of what that process is. We're living within our 300,000 acre foot allocation. We've got partnerships that'll help us to expand that allocation, some more water for us in the future, and then ultimately additional partnerships which may come along, which might include desalination, might include other partnerships maybe with those who are using agricultural water or other municipal water users, where we can partner and share in conservation or creating new water resources. And all of those things, I think you're going to see really move forward a bit more and a bit faster than you're going to see necessarily with desal. But again, desal is there. It is a viable option at some point in the future. It's just your most expensive option right now.
Yeah, I think too, you look at the river and we looked at all these things that we're talking about with, the certain divide. Is there ever going to be a point where somebody's going to be pushed out? Because there's going to be 1 million more people coming to Las Vegas, I think, within the next few years. They're talking about there's a lot of transition. People are working from home, so you see a lot of people migrating to Las Vegas. Would we ever get to that point where one of those states is going to get kicked out from the system?
From the Colorado River Compact?
Yeah.
Again, talking in
Just
hypotheticals here.
Kick out the Democrats.
Yeah.
I'm joking. That was a joke.
You have to remember that this is a 7-state compact. So this was agreed to by 7 states and their legislative bodies. This was agreed to by Congress. This was a real rigid process. And so in order for somebody just to per se get kicked out.
Wouldn't happen.
It wouldn't happen. The compact
Well,
isn't
you would
set
think
up
then
that
at
way.
some point though that there's going to be a shortage, and I guess it's because is the supply going to keep continuing to go up of water for the amount of population that keeps migrating to Arizona? We already have a ton of people. How much does California take from the Lake Mead?
So they take 4.4 million acre feet,
Okay.
and we are already now moving toward that shortage condition that we are going to be in next year. There are agreements between the lower basin states, Arizona, California, and Nevada, as well as the country of Mexico,
Right.
so that those states will take less water from the Colorado River under these varying levels of shortages. And it all depends on what the level of Lake Mead is projected to be. So there already are things in place to minimize or reduce demands on Lake Mead, which is obviously beneficial, right? I mean, we're talking about supply and demand issues here. You're either going to increase the supply or you're going to lower the demand. And right now we're working to lower the demand. And that's, again, why conservation is so important.
Right.
You know, and I realize here in Southern Nevada, we think we ought to be able to use all of the water that we want, you know, and who cares if there's water
Yeah.
running down the street. But again, we're talking about a finite resource, a limited resource. We really need to be more conscientious about how we use it. Follow the watering restrictions, get rid of that grass that you're not using, and definitely report water waste to your local water utility. Help them out. Help them out. Help them know where that
Yeah.
water waste is occurring. They'll communicate with that property owner, and that'll get corrected.
So I read an article recently. I mean, you know, like the media, they just want to do some clickbait to like make a story so they can, you know,
Sell. Yeah.
So the article was about Lake Powell and Lake Mead, and people were saying that maybe they could reduce the amount of water in Lake Powell to like bring the lake up in Lake Mead. And then, you know, I've been to Lake Powell. Lake Powell's a beautiful lake.
Amazing.
Really awesome, like sandstone cliffs and
Yeah.
really cool. Much prettier than Lake Mead, in my opinion. Now, that's never going to happen. Do you think that will happen? Is there a logical argument to bring down Lake Powell to bring up Lake Mead? Do you
Well,
think?
the thing to keep in mind is that both Lake
'Cause it's
Powell
all
and
this- they're
Lake Mead
connected. Doesn't matter.
have critical
same-
purposes.
Yeah.
Lake Powell is the storage reservoir for the upper basin states, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico.
Okay.
And under the Colorado River Compact, there needs to be a specific amount of water
in there.
released down to the lower basin states over a 10-year period.
Mm-hmm.
And Lake Powell helps the upper basin states to be able to make sure that they can meet those obligations that they have under the Colorado River Compact. On top of that, Lake Powell is also producing power at Glen Canyon Dam. So there is a benefit there of power production as well that would be lost should Lake Powell ultimately go away. I think that the Bureau of Reclamation in the upper basin states view Lake Powell and the importance of Lake Powell as being so significant because right now they are taking and moving water from other reservoirs above Lake Powell in order to get
keep
more
Lake
water
Powell
down
full.
into Lake Powell to get that elevation of that lake level up. But eventually that water does get released down to Lake Mead. It's just a question of how much each year. And that depends on the level of Lake Powell and the level of Lake Mead.
Is it possible, you know, that like sometimes, you know, I forget where they just did it recently, but they do like cloud seeding to like precipitate precipitation. Is it possible that we could spray the clouds and get more snowpack?
So there has been
Has
a
there-
lot
has
of
there
cloud
been-
seeding activity that has taken
Has
place
that
over
ever
the
been
past 20
tried?
years.
Has that been tried?
It actually takes place every winter. Wyoming does quite a bit of cloud seeding. They do some up in Utah.
That's to
They
pull
do
the
it-
water out the air instead of it blowing over.
Correct.
Yeah.
I believe it's a silver iodine that gets
Yeah.
added to the clouds, and that's supposed to encourage the actual snowfall. So yeah, cloud seeding continues to be one of those things that the seven states that share the Colorado River have been partners on in
Right.
the past. You bet.
So, you guys have any other questions for Bronson over here about anything going on with the water?
I think
and
we covered everything.
That was pretty in depth. That was
I
pretty
thought we did
Oh,
everything.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Another
Your
one?
50-year plan, right? Do you know where population growth figures into your projections with the water authority for the valley? Do you have any idea what that might look like in like 5 to 10 years?
Well, we take population projection from Center for Business and Economic Research.
Okay.
They just released their most recent population projection that said that over the next 40 years, our population is expected to increase by another 1 million people.
At least,
Now,
I would say.
And this is
Yeah.
they said 1 million. in our water resource plan that we have, we also hedge a little bit. We add some additional population growth on there. We add some additional water demands on there to make sure that we're taking a conservative approach to this. So we see the CBER forecast that comes out and says, you know, by 2061, we're going to have an extra 1 million people go to our water resource plan. That's great. We were already planning for that. So we are taking that into account, and our resource plan is based on population projection. It's not based on where a development goes. So whether or not there's a strip mall built here or a condo complex built there doesn't matter. What matters is based on what the population is going to be, what we are all using per person per day, which right now we use 112 gallons per person per day in Southern Nevada.
That's crazy.
And that's just taking 112.
112.
Matt, you need to knock on everybody's door in your neighborhood and let them know.
Our
That's like everything.
Our goal is to get that down to 105.
Shower with a friend.
Shower with a friend. My man, Mike. Yes.
Depends on the friend.
That's right. Shower with a friend.
Yeah, I'll keep quiet on that. I'm not going to say anything.
Matt's going to open up doors on that one.
So that's why.
But not back doors.
But that's why getting rid. That's why getting rid of grass is so important. If we can get rid of this, if we can get rid of grass in this valley, grass that nobody is using, grass that we drive by at 45 miles an hour, that drinks our water supply at 73 gallons a square foot. I mean, that's huge water savings for us. We could cut our water use by 10% just by doing that. Yeah, and that's what we're going to do over the next 5 years.
Yeah. When we did our backyard, I decided I did not want grass because I didn't want to mow it. I had a huge lawn when I lived up in Oregon, and I had to mow it twice a week up there just because it rained so much, and I just did not want to do that again.
You had to mow that grass, but you didn't have to irrigate it. And that's kind of the difference here in Southern Nevada.
That's a good point.
So think about it. Everything that grows outside in this valley, every bush, every tree, unless it's a creosote bush or a mesquite tree that's grown outside of our urban population here, it is being irrigated. And if it's being irrigated, it's being irrigated by our drinking water supply. That's why we're targeting that grass, because that's your drinking water that is going on that grass.
I want to transition, so I want to say thank you, Bronson, for coming on, and we're going to transition to a couple things. I learned a lot from this conversation.
I had a lot of questions, and so when Dan said, "Oh, we got the water authority coming," I'm like, "I'm
in.
I'm coming."
You should have came with your water authority shirt on, man. Like ready to go. You knew a lot. I'm surprised.
You had questions.
I mean, I did science, and then I switched to humanities, and so I find science interesting, and we gotta there's always you don't know what the truth is. You see what's being projected, but we got so used to our lifestyles. It's America, and we consume a lot, and you don't think to conserve. It's
and we have a lot of good information on our website, SNWA.com. You can also go to our YouTube page. If you're like, look, I don't want to read anything about water, that's fine. We got you.
We'll read it to
you.
Go
to our YouTube page and check out some of what we have there, because we've got a lot of good information there. Because the most important thing is for this community to be knowledgeable and understand how we use water so that we can better reduce how we use water.
Well said, Bronson.
And make sure that we're using it the most efficient way possible.
I want to transition to, we're going to have all your information into the comment section. So if you guys want to get a hold of Bronson, or email him, however you guys want to get a hold of him. So let's talk about what's going on here in Las Vegas. We'll do a quick update. I know this kind of ran, it ran a little bit long, but there's a lot of good information.
Yeah,
they needed that. Yeah, they needed that. So let's talk about, and you could, Bronson, you can include on this conversation. It's going to affect you. What do you guys think about the moratorium being where the eviction moratorium is now not extended?
Okay,
it's passed.
So
what do you
I've
think?
been keeping an eye on it, and the White House did an effort to appease people that are going to be negatively affected by that.
Sure.
More for political PR than actual genuine I don't want to sound like an arse, but the reality of the situation is that the right people have to be in the right homes. And if you don't have money to pay for shelter, then you shouldn't be there, and you should be somewhere else, figure something else out, because everyone has to take accountability for their own we can't like let everyone live for free,
Right.
Like, because it's just society doesn't work like that. So they tried to like extend it,
Yeah.
but it got shot down, and you know we're going to start to see evictions here. I mentioned this on Saturday. One concern I have is I saw some communications that you know, with this alleged Delta variant, and
We're going to talk about that.
I've heard rumors that it's almost virtually a done deal about us having another lockdown in August.
Really? I haven't heard that. I
So
haven't heard
anyway,
that.
but then there was language used when they were talking about the moratorium, like extending it,
Mm-hmm.
because they were saying, well, the people that are now going to be homeless and don't have somewhere to live, they're going to be the most susceptible to like the new Delta variant, and we need to protect them.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I would hope that we have some creeping up inventory now, where like I've been dealing with a lot of situations where people are selling homes with tenants in because they can't get them out and they're not good tenants. So hopefully we should have a bit more housing supply. It's an unfortunate business for people that are hard up, but I don't have a lot of sympathy because I know that there's a huge amount of the population that's just staying at home taking unemployment, and they need to be out working, and there's a shortage of workers, and people need to like start paying for themselves again. They need to figure it out, in my opinion, because I've always figured it out.
Yeah.
And there comes a point where if you're unemployed, you need to get off your ass and sort it out.
Absolutely.
And like contribute to society and earn income.
Mike, what do you think?
Well, today Biden did announce that they are extending it through October 3rd. Yeah.
The eviction moratorium.
They won.
Yeah. Well, today I'm just looking here on
That's
the
not
interwebs. It's just the way
So
it is.
So do you know what I thought they were going to do? Is I thought they were going to start with if we have another lockdown, then they can use that as an excuse to like kick the can again and say this is the reason we're doing it. But like if they are granting that extension, because the other thing is the unemployment runs out end of September. Is it?
Yeah, so Mike, you're saying that they extend it now to October now, right? Because last week I was pitching that it expired, and then everybody's going to have to really try to figure this
it's
out.
It's supposed to expire Saturday.
Okay.
But it looks like...
This was last Saturday, though. That was the 31st.
Yeah.
Last
right.
Saturday.
So what I'm trying to read here.
So but the thing is this, is when you look at this, is it really going to affect our overall position here in Las Vegas? Because if you look at homes... A lot of these homes that we're selling right now are homes that people were maybe have closed in 2020. And I predict that if we didn't have the COVID because of how things were stalled and builders and everything that's going on, that you go into 2021, we're seeing where people are closing on their homes that should have closed in 2020.
Correct.
We might be like either flat or even in a negative position. So is the housing market really booming? I mean, I know Las Vegas is different, but...
Well, I mean... It's hard to say because it's a moving target. I do know that like on Saturday, like 3 times the number of homes got listed on Saturday than the Saturday before. And these things take time. Like what I've experienced is homes evaporating in 2 days into contract. And now, you know, it could be like 2 weeks,
Wow.
which is still very good for like a seller.
Mike's got some good information.
Yeah.
Mike, go ahead and pitch that, dude. That's just 3 hours ago?
Yeah.
Wow.
The CDC has said that they're targeting it to, or extending it until October.
Wow. So
Okay.
they went a few days past. Everything was settled, and now they're saying they're going to go ahead and extend it. I mean, how
but
many
the
times are
CDC
they, how many
CDC,
times are
isn't
they
it,
going to extend that, though?
Yeah, I know, It's bizarre.
It's
But
a real weird
this
situation.
is the world we live in now,
Yeah.
in America.
It's a real
Yeah.
weird situation, I feel, you know.
But it's tough for people, landlords trying to make those mortgage payments. When
Well, they're not getting any help.
No.
No, I mean, that's the crazy thing. Is,
Well, don't you think those servicers are coming in to help out? I mean, you see a lot of forbearance things where people are on now a forbearance, or they're getting their loan extended to 40 years, or they have a loan modification. There's something that they're doing. So I would say it's different between evictions, the eviction moratorium, and then also the forbearance, or when you're dealing with a mortgage or a loan, because there's more options, I feel, for somebody that has a loan. The bank doesn't want to let that house go to foreclosure.
No, they learned that lesson big time.
Yeah. So what's unknown is, again, with clickbait, real estate cyclical. People say, "Oh, we're due a crash," right? But there's this shadow data of what the servicers would know.
Yeah.
Like what percentage of mortgages in the valley, I'm talking Las Vegas and Henderson, what percentage are in forbearance or delinquent and should have been foreclosed on or had a notice of default. Like that shadow data, we don't know what that is. And
Would be very interesting to find
that's
out.
that's
Who has it?
That's the iceberg that could sink the Titanic. Like, because I don't think it's going to, because all those homes most of them have equity, and so they would be regular sales. Something that we've encountered in our office, like Simply Vegas, last year we helped 4,600 families and we only have like 400 agents.
Yeah.
And this year, last month, we sold over $1 billion of real estate quick, within 6 months. So we're on target to do like 2 billion in sales this year with 400 agents. We're pound for pound, agent for agent, we sell the most. Like number 1 and 2 combined have 5,000 agents. We're number 3 with like 416.
Yeah, but I would say this. I would say this is to me it's an unhealthy market.
Yeah, but
I really feel
this is
that.
a problem we've encountered in the office recently, is that we're listing homes, and then the seller says, "Are you up to date on your mortgage?" And they say yes because they're in forbearance and they think it's okay. But the reality of the situation is that if you are in forbearance, then you are technically behind on your mortgage. It doesn't affect your credit at this time, and it's being crammed down the servicer's throat.
Absolutely.
But you're still going to have to pay for that if you sell your house. You have like, if you have like a year.
Yeah,
of,
you still have to pay for it. But I think it's stopping the bleeding. How do you put a Band-Aid on it? That doesn't. If you can somehow maneuver around the problem.
Yeah.
And then just say, hey.
Well, that's what the administration's been doing for like 2 years.
Yeah.
We've maneuvered every which way around it.
Yeah, they have. I just think that, with the credit worthiness of where borrowers are at, to me, the reason why I say it's an unhealthy market is because we have like a perfect storm where all these things, low interest rates, our primary sector or primary demographics is the one buying homes. So those two are really driving the market, and it's really driving the prices of homes. And I just feel that it's just putting everybody.
Well, here's what's interesting. Based on Mike, what you hot off the internet, that new information today.
It's
hot off the press.
So
it is
hot.
true.
Hot off the press.
Okay, so how's that going to affect us now?
Yeah.
Guess what? If you're a homeowner, your property's going to go up in value more.
Yep.
And if you're a buyer, you're going to have a harder time because there's less opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's what's probably going to happen.
Yeah. So I don't feel that there's going to be a huge problem when this actually does, because I mean it's extended again. So we just it's almost like a broken record at this point. We keep saying it's changing or it's not extended. Now it is. Now it is. I mean, look, I don't know what that's really going to do to this market or this Las Vegas market. I don't think it's going to have much, if anything, because I think there's so many programs. We've been in a declining market. I said this on as far as homes to buy. The inventory.
There's less inventory for sure
since 2014.
Yeah.
So and it's just getting worse and worse. I couldn't see it getting worse than what it is. I think we have 4,700 homes on the market total. I mean, that's not a lot. I mean, it's increased, but it's still not a lot. So
I tell you, this week, I've got a client that wants to get a home. Their home's in contract. I'm going to get them another home here. I wrote 2 offers yesterday for that client in the same neighborhood. I told each seller that I was writing 2 offers and that they were going to buy one of the homes, and it was either that one or another one. So get back quick, and because it's kind of like a bit of pressure I put on people to get like a result for my client. And then we wrote 1 offer. One house was listed for $835 in Southern Highlands. We wrote an offer for $775, and they counted $799.
Yeah.
And the other one, they haven't counted us back yet. But like 3 months ago, it was white hot, and now it's hot. And I think that there's some unknown factors with the eviction moratorium, forbearance, some other things, and it's calmed down. In my experience, it's calmed down a bit.
Yeah.
Where like,
well, I'm going to counter to that or kind of go off
yeah.
that, because you go back to March or February of 2020, right? You looked at this was like the big pandemic. This is when it started. There was fear, and that's people don't operate well under fear.
Are you talking last year?
Last year.
Yeah.
And so you come into this year and consumer goods and services are still flowing. That fear is gone. You know, people are not afraid to spend their money, even though we have this new COVID breaking out, you know, the new variant. There's no fear. People still are going to spend money. They're still going out and buying homes. So for me, I don't see that this is going to drop off. And when is that going to continue to go up with these prices? Or should we look for a leveling off at some point? There are a lot of people who are saying we're going to crash this year because of the inventory, because of the moratorium. All of this data and all this stuff that's coming to fruition here is just showing demographics.
It's kind of interesting.
It's not really happening, though. It's really just kind of a slow process. If you look at a lot of the data that I see, it's just kind of a slow process going up. It's more of a vertical instead of it just drop or go straight up. It's more of a vertical. So what do you think, Mike?
I think you're right. You know, we're just going to keep doing this for a little bit, and who knows?
All right, let's segue to this last topic. I want you to get all your opinion on this. This is going to affect us all, the Delta variant. What impact will this have on Las Vegas? Do you think it's going to have any impact whatsoever?
We're back to wearing masks.
Yeah, but although I would say there's certain reticence to mask wearing that, like, I mean, I went to a casino on Friday. I went to the Mandalay Bay, and, you know, most people are wearing masks, but like I work out at the gym.
Yes.
No one was wearing masks, and like no one was saying anything about it. But like I think there's a fatigue in the notion of putting on and off the mask that has worn off. Like overall, I think that may change with like it's recent, and there may be some more shaming, and there may be some more like coercion on businesses. For instance, at the gym I go to, I'm sure that if OSHA showed up and saw everyone not wearing a mask, I'm sure they would attempt to levy a fine on that gym. And that's where the coercion and manipulation comes in. But I mean, there was last week, I think it was the equivalent, what's the equivalent of like the medical surgeon for Hawaii? Like, you know, like the health person.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or he warned Hawaiians not to go to Vegas because he said it was irresponsible and dangerous. And, you know, Vegas has been vilified, even I believe by Governor Newsom as well, as a bad place to go to because it's going to bring Delta back to our home states. But never before has, like, you know, like if it's like slander, but then you're like, oh, it's for the greater good.
Yeah.
But it's our economy. Yeah. And, you know, like people are going to do what they're going to do. And we thrive. The Nevada is Las Vegas, Clark County is diversifying away from just being dependent on like economic activities from the strip, right? Yeah. We're diversifying, but it's still like the main employer, one of the main employers, right?
Mike, what do you think? I mean, with this variant, I mean, it's not going to affect you. Do you see people in person? So how do you think it's going to affect Las Vegas? I mean, is it going to affect tourism, housing market? What do you think?
Well, we're just getting all the conventions back and all those things.
I know.
And, I hope that we can just keep doing what we're doing. If we got to mask up, okay, we'll do it.
Well, yeah, but if you have to mask up and you put a mask on, then you should be good, right?
Right?
You know?
Well,
do you know what I mean? Good for you.
Right.
You're wearing a mask. Good job.
I flew
do you know what I mean?
from Minnesota to Vegas on Sunday. And oh my gosh, I hadn't worn a mask in so long, but I had to, dig one out.
Get on with it. I would on a plane. Like I've worn them on the plane.
Yeah. Well,
but you got to do
in the airport, and when I Ubered home, I had to wear a mask.
Everyone's got to feel comfortable and safe.
When you're in these conventions and you're walking around with
you can't talk.
10,000 of your closest friends. I think I'd probably wear a mask.
Yeah.
I don't know who these people are. So
I know.
I mean, even if you did talk, you probably couldn't hear them too well. But I just think it's starting to come full circle where everybody thinks it's going to go back to the shutdown. And I wanted to go back to that with what you said. I don't feel like we're going to go through a lockdown or a shutdown like we did before, because I feel that, yes, things are in place. And I feel that the economy's still, it's really starting to come back. But to go to a whole nother level of shutting down again, I mean, that's
control.
That's a big step.
It's control.
Man. That's gonna I think that's gonna plummet.
We'll see what happens.
Our economy.
We throw it out there. Like, I don't know. I've seen communications about it that it's virtually a done deal, but you just don't know until it happens. But these things don't happen immediately.
Yeah.
They take weeks to plan.
Bronson, what are your thoughts on this, man? With the whole variant coming out, I mean, is that going to affect like Las Vegas? Like, what do you think?
Pretty straight ahead. Get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's get vaccinated. It's out there. It's available. I was one of the first ones in line as soon as I could. Get vaccinated.
Why do you think people are on the sidelines where they feel like maybe they don't know if they want to or not? Just curious.
It's all become political.
You think so?
Yeah.
Oh, it falls right in line with people's political beliefs and where they're voting and the media that they're actually consuming.
Yeah.
So it's all right in line.
And then the other
there,
thing is, what's interesting is there's no actual news now. Like, there's information catering to your politics, but there isn't you got to pick your information or science from like a selection of
But
places.
science is science. It's not selecting your science.
But there's statistics, and
science is
like all
valid
kinds of things.
and empirical and those kinds of things. Science does get better. Science improves upon itself for sure. But you have to go with your trusted sources, and ultimately this all moves back into political conversation and political media.
But do you know what's interesting is the CDC owns 100 vaccine patents, and they make over $5 billion a year from vaccines.
Well, here's how I thought of it, and maybe I'm wrong, but
and
it's
I know this as
taxpayer
well.
money.
I'm in a lawsuit
Right.
right now with
Yeah.
Human and Health Services over like a vaccine death. My daughter died within 24 hours of vaccines.
Right.
And so I've like looked more into this.
Yes.
And it's an awful business, and it's unfortunately, because there's money in vaccines and there's not money in other treatments like hydrochloroquine or other treatments, like you're just going to push one treatment, one size fits all, because it makes billions and billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And so it's a very like interesting time.
Well, like I said, they're giving incentive for $100. They haven't passed it, but
Walmart's giving $150 now.
We will pay as a consumer the taxes on that, because they're going to just say, look, it's free, but they're going to create. So look, I get it. I think, there's got to be a way, but I mean, at the end of the day, you look at it and you go, should anybody be paying for this, right? Like, even though because the government's paying for this, but then they're going to put it on taxation, right? That's kind of.
Well, the pharmaceutical industry contributes 5 times more than the oil industry to government for lobbying and money. Mm-hmm. And like I heard an interview yesterday about Walmart. Walmart's the largest employer like in America.
Sure.
And they've just implemented a corporate policy where they're bringing people back to the office instead of working from home. Mm-hmm. But all the corporate employees have to get vaccinated, but they don't have to vaccinate the people that work in the stores.
Yeah.
Because they don't care about public health. They care about employee retention and losing workers when there's already a shortage of people at home, because they're claiming unemployment and they're watching YouTube and getting an unemployment check rather than like doing a job.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I would agree that a lot of people should be working.
this
There's a
is-
lot of jobs available.
This is nothing to do with public health.
Right.
It's all about money.
Yeah. You guys have
In
any
my
last
opinion.
thoughts? We're going to finish the show. We ran a little bit long.
Yeah.
I wanted to get some information in. Great information from
Yeah,
Bronson
really
Mack.
appreciate that,
Bronson,
Bronson.
we appreciate you coming on, buddy.
Really enjoyed
appreciate
it.
you having me
Yeah.
here,
Shoot
letting me
us
talk
out.
a little bit about conservation.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Shoot
Thanks
out
so much.
that website again. We'll have your information. Shoot out how somebody can find you or get
I-
your information.
We'd love to have you roll over to SNWA.com, Southern Nevada Water Authority.com. That's where you can get all your conservation information. Find your watering days. Make sure you change your sprinkler clock to 3 days a week come September 1st. And there's lots of other good conservation information out there. Hey, we'll even give you coupons for a commercial car wash.
Wow.
Rather than washing that car on your own and putting in that sweat and labor in your front yard. and losing that water
Losing
to
that water.
evaporation, go to a commercial car wash, go to our
Interesting.
website. We'll give you a
Sweet
coupon so you
deal.
can get a...
Holy cow.
Mike, what you got, man?
Reasonably
You got
priced.
anything else to say over here?
No, everything's good.
Yeah,
Just-
you did good today, huh?
Yeah, well, you know, life is good. I'm back working again after 2 weeks off. It's tough. You always have a zillion emails to catch up
Right,
on.
right. Also, Matt, what's up, buddy? You got anything left to say?
Yeah, just, love your neighbor, save your water,
Absolutely.
and keep your gunpowder dry.
Guys, this is Dan French. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back here on Saturday. This is the channel that has the most real and behind-the-scenes information regarding financing, real estate, money talk, entrepreneurs, through education and on-job experience here in Las Vegas. Guys, we'll see you on Saturday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for watching an episode of the French Workbench podcast. If you want to tune into past episodes, please subscribe to my channel now. Also, if you want to look at our audio-only options, we do have iTunes and SoundCloud.